Welcome back, guys. I actually am redoing this video because my mouth is too far away from the mic, and if you turned it up, I had this humming noise in the background, and I want to get a better mic so that you guys can hear me a little bit better, but that's further in the future. When I'm a little bit more financially well off, and I can spend more money on my hobbies. Anyway, okay, so what I want to show you in this video is a game mechanic that I'm sure that somebody's done this before or something very similar, but I was kind of working on it the other day. I thought it was a cool idea. I have 4 sprites here. They're just different colored blocks, the same size. I drew little numbers in there, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then I made objects out of them. And they all have the same script, except one little difference, and that's right here, and I'll explain it in a minute after I get done making this other important object that controls this player select variable here. But all of them have the same movement and collision code. So they all interact with walls the same way, they all move the same speed, jump the same height, which you can actually change a little bit to make each one individually unique. But one very important thing I did was that I made their parent obj wall. You can just hit this little tab here and select what you want their parent to be. And for every single one of the objects, I made them children of obj wall. And what that does is makes it to where they inherit the properties of that object. So whenever we see all these collision events with obj wall, that means that they're going to interact with each other just as if they would interact with a wall, or the obj wall. So real quick, I need to make this object. We're going to call it obj control. We don't need to assign a sprite to it. We don't want to see it in the room unless, no, usually with an object like this you don't want to see it, but you can, this is a good object to make persistent, which means that it's going to be in every room of the game, and you only have to, you put it in the first room and then it exists for the rest of the game. So when you start the game up, it's there in the first room, and you don't have to put it in every single room. I hope I explained that enough in so many different ways. But and it's good to have that way. That way you can keep track of health, just all sorts of things. You can do all sorts of things with, if you make yourself a control object, you can control game states, which is kind of what we're going to be doing in this tutorial. So I want to make the create event, drag some code in here, and it's going to say, we're just going to initialize a variable, and we're going to make it a global variable. That means that any object can reference this variable as long as they put global before it. It's going to be player select. So if object 1 were to say player select equals blah blah blah, there would be an error. It wouldn't know what it's talking about. But if you put global.playerSelect, then it's going to say, oh, okay, then this global variable that everybody's messing with. So global.playerSelect, we'll go ahead and have it start at 1. That way, we're going to have the value of player select is going to correspond to the player object. P1, P2, P3, P4. So we'll start it at 1 so that you're already controlling object P1. Now we'll add a step event. Drag some code in here, and we're going to need what's known as a for loop, and it's going to loop and loop and loop until a certain condition is met. So for first you initialize a variable, so we'll just use I, because I mean, what am I going to use I for besides this? It's just a convention. People usually use I for. You can use Y, or no, not Y, because that's built into GameMaker, but you can use M, N, whatever you want. You know, just for, we'll do P for player select. So for P equals 1, as long as P is less than or equal to 1, P will plus equal 1. Okay, so we have the 3 parts. Move this out of the way. So we have 3 parts of our for loop. Initialize the variable. When does the variable terminate? And then the variable incrementing itself every step. So every step it adds 1 to P. Oh, I don't know why I put 1 there. I had to put 4 because we have 4 players. Okay, so now we're going to do a keyboard check to see if we're going to make it to where 1, 2, 3, and 4 change the player select. So if keyboard check pressed, ord, because we're going to be calling it from the keyboard. You've got VK shift, VK up, left, down, right, VK space, all that. But if you're calling a number or a letter, you're going to use ord. So, and we want to call either 1, 2, 3, or 4. And we're going to use P to do that. So we'll put string P. And we're going to need a lot of parentheses here. So that's one there, that one there, and then one more. Okay, so string here turns this, whatever variable is in here in the argument, it turns it into a string. And ord needs a string to call from. So we're calling 1, or if it's the second step and it's already added 1 to P, it could be 2, 3, or 4. Because once P becomes 5, it's going to terminate the loop because it's no longer less than or equal to 4. Okay. I hope that all makes sense. So now, if you press 1, 2, 3, or 4, then global dot player select equals P. Seems simple enough, right? Okay, so now I need to show you the code that I added to. I wish this thing would work properly. Silly Windows magnifier. Sorry guys, I'm cheap. Anyway, so that's it for the controller object. So now, I already wrote a little bit of code in here. The only thing I changed was I added this first line of code where it says if global.playerSelect equals 1, and then this bracket right here, this curly brace, corresponds to this one I put down here at the very bottom after everything. So those 2 lines of codes are the only 2 things I added to the code that we've already worked on in the previous tutorials. And I can put a link to those tutorials because it's very good basic platforming engine. It's very simple, very useful. I'll put a link to the playlist or whatever. So yeah, so for player 1 I put if global.playerSelect equals 2. And then I did the same thing for players 2 through 4, except I made it to where it says if global.playerSelect equals 2. And what this does is all of this code is encased in this if statement. So if this if statement is false, then none of this is going to happen. So whenever we change the player select with 1, 2, 3, or 4, then we're changing which one is active and which ones are not active. So all we have to do now is add the control object in here, save it, and run it. Oh, I already put the other players in the room, by the way. Sorry. So now, since I started it to equal 1, 1 is already moving. Jump. And then, since I made them inherit from obj wall, they will interact with each other just as if they interact with a wall. And if I hit 2, now the 2 is moving. And the reason I used the for loop was just to save typing. You could have said if keyboard check pressed or 1, then game or player select equals 1, and do that 4 different times. But I just figured it would be easier to use a for loop. It's only 3 or 4 lines of code. Very simple, and I figured it would be a good thing to cover if you guys aren't familiar with for loops. So also, everything stops whenever you, like, if I were to change to 1, 3, or 4, everything would stop for 2. So if I jump in the air, middle of the air, now it's stuck there, stuck in the middle of the air. And I can jump on top of it. So you can see fairly easily how this could become a puzzle game. I just thought it was kind of cool. I wanted to share with you guys, and I'll keep adding to. I'll make this a playlist and keep adding to it. Maybe some game mechanics that I think up that you guys might enjoy. Some stairs. So there we go. Yeah. Alright, so thanks for watching, guys, and I hope to provide you with some more awesome content that you guys keep coming back. Anyway, I'll see you guys later.